have one more thing.
Apple's 2026 lineup of watches are here, and with so many options, starting from the cheapest through to the most expensive. And in this video, I want to help you decide which one is the best for you to buy right now, depending on your budget and the features that you want. Including how long each watch actually lasts on LTE only, and which one is best to buy for your kids, because I've literally tested all of them. And unless you want to be caught out by Apple's sneaky secret but if marketing technique, or want to spend hundreds more than you actually need to, hold tight and let me explain. Now, to get started, let's just run through which watches are currently available from Apple's website, from the SE through to the Ultras. So we have the Apple Watch SE3 starting from just $249, which gets a pretty big update this year, but is still Apple's cheapest watch, which is available in two different colors, two different sizes, and with or without LTE connectivity. Next up, we have the brand new Apple Watch Series 11, starting from $399, available in two different materials, 7 different colors, 2 different sizes, with or without LTE, and a bunch of different watch strap options. And then we have the Apple Watch Ultra 3 at $799, just one size, 2 different finishes, and includes LTE as standard. You also have the Apple Watch Hermès for the Series 11 at a whopping $1,249 in 1 finish, 2 sizes, and 6 watch straps. And then finally, the Apple Watch Hermès Ultra 3 edition at an even more whopping $1,399 in 1 size, 1 finish, and 2 styles of straps. So there are a lot of options, and that is not even including all the variations of the watch bands you can buy for every different model of these watches. And also not forgetting to mention that you can still likely find old watches like the Series 9 or Series 10 at places like Amazon, and even on Apple's own certified refurbished store. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there is a tiny link for that, where you can find refurbished Apple watches at a pretty decent discount, plus you get the full Apple warranty. So if you don't want to spend the cash on a brand new model, it is well worth checking out those as well. So first up, there is the budget option. This is the one where people just want an Apple Watch on their wrist for the cheapest price possible, or maybe you just want to buy one for your kid to wear at school so you can track them, with or without having a full-on phone. And this is an interesting one this year. Now, if you stick to only what's available directly from Apple, then it's obviously the SE3 over the Series 11, unless you want some of the additional features. But when you throw into the mix the Series 10, which is also currently still available from Apple's refurbished store, then things get a little more interesting. Now, the SE3 starts at $249, but a refurbished Series 10, $299, or you've got the Series 11 at $399. So here, for the extra $50 to go from the SE3 to the Series 10, you go from a 1,000 nit display to a 2,000 nit display. This is probably one that is worth thinking about, if you don't live in the UK and actually see the sun for more than a couple of weeks a year. The extra brightness will definitely help. It also goes to 1 nit minimum brightness versus 2 nits for when you're looking at it in dark rooms. The display themselves are also 2mm bigger on the Series 10. You do get the same S10 chip, but you do get extra features. You've got hypertension notifications, the blood oxygen app, a water temperature sensor, a depth gauge up to 6 meters. You've got precision finding with an iPhone, better battery life with faster charging. The only thing that the SE3 really has over the last year's Series 10 is that it has 5G instead of 4G, which again only really applies if you buy the LTE versions. And then in terms of LTE battery life, we have had all these watches long enough to do multiple tests where we can connect them to LTE, and we switch off Bluetooth, switch off Wi-Fi, and force them onto LTE, fully charged until they die. And for both the SE3 and the Series 10, we got around about 15 to maybe as low as 10 hours on pure LTE, which is pretty solid. Like, that's a full day at school if you are giving this to your kid. So with all that said, you are paying $50 extra to get all of those extra features. But my advice here is that if you are buying one for yourself, then pay the extra for a refurbished Series 10. If you are buying it for a child, then those extra features will probably go to waste, so get the SE3 instead. And even potentially go for a refurbished SE for an even cheaper price, which comes in as low as $169 right now. Now, I think the SE makes a great purchase for someone's first watch, and really useful if you want them to be, contactable and trackable when they go to school, but without giving them that full-on phone. Now, before I talk about the big but if problem with buying an Apple Watch, as well as tell you how you can actually get an Apple Watch almost practically free, I want to thank the sponsor of this portion of the video, MOFT. Now, MOFT have a whole range of Apple accessories, including their Snap Duo watch bands, which come in 2 sizes and 5 different colors. Now, each of those bands actually means 2 colors and 4 different looks. They're super easy to switch out for different looks, and they secured magnetically, so you can quickly and easily adjust to get the perfect fit. Now these bands have no front, no back to them. You can literally flip them over for a fun, like, alternating design. They are great for working out or day-to-day wear, or even matching with whatever outfit or style you're going with today. Now I am a huge fan of bright colors, as you can probably tell, but being able to flip these over for something that might well fit better with what I'm wearing, or maybe a more formal event I'm attending, super cool. They're made with this soft pebbled silicone material, which also means they won't scratch the edge of your laptop and don't absorb a ton of water, and so you don't leave these wet patches on your clothes after you shower. And they are also comfortable to wear for those who keep their watch on all day long for tracking and for sleeping. And you can check them out using this QR code or with a link in the video description down below. The only other reason that would force you to upgrade to a different model Apple Watch, and this might sound silly, is if you wanted a specific finish or a specific color. Now the SE3 only comes in 2 colors. You've got Midnight or Starlight. The SE10 comes in 2 finishes, 6 colors, and then the Series 11 comes in 2 finishes and 7 colors. You've got the aluminium in silver, gold, or black, and with the Series 11 the new space gray color, which has the option of GPS or GPS and cellular. Or you could upgrade to titanium in natural, gold, or slate, but this again includes GPS and cellular. There is no non-cellular option here. So once you've decided based on the features, whether it is the SE, the Series 10, or the Series 11, there are 2 more decisions to make. You've got the size and whether to go LTE or not. Now, size is relatively straightforward here. You pay more money and you get a bigger screen. Now, I've personally always gone for the bigger watch, and it's definitely a trend I've seen with, the guys going for the bigger watches and ladies going for the smaller watches. And then the second question was LTE or not. Now, having LTE on your watch means you can then leave your phone at home, but you can still call, you can text, still get notifications, you can still stream music directly from your watch to Bluetooth headphones. So if you do a lot of running, you can run with just your watch and a pair of headphones for a really great experience. So this year, I actually bought all of the watches, the Ultra, the SE3, and the Series 11 in both sizes, and me and the team here set up data plans on each of them. And because we have too many plans and too many phones and too many watches, we tested all of them because, well, YouTube. And we tested them side by side, each watch paired to a different phone, but then we disabled Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and just went about our usual days. So all of the watches were then connected to LTE when they could. Now, the SE3 lasted for around 10 to 15 hours, the Apple Watch Series 11 for around 15 to 20 hours on both sizes, and then the Apple Watch Ultra lasted slightly longer than around 18 to 24 hours. Now, why the variance? Well, it hugely depends on your location. Like, if you sit in one place with strong signal, it will consume less. But if you then stay in one place where it might be jumping between cell towers because you've got poor signal, it will chew through your battery faster. And then likewise, if you're out and about, then it will also be constantly like hunting and switching its LTE connection. Now, of course, this was a fairly extreme test, as you are likely to have your watch connected to your phone via Bluetooth. Your watch is probably on Wi-Fi when it's at home. But what that does mean is that you can quite comfortably go for a swim or a run and leave your phone at home or in a locker and still be able to reply to texts without a phone and use basically all of the features on the Apple Watch as if you still had a phone on you. And then if you're giving one to your kid to wear at school, then it can comfortably get through a full day at school as well. So yeah, very impressed with the LTE performance this year across all of the watches. And then there is also a third choice to make this year as to whether you want to pay the extra for Apple Care. And this will depend on your use. If you work in environments where you're likely to damage your watch, then again, it could be well worth it. But I generally wouldn't recommend Apple Care unless you're going for the more expensive options like the Ultra. But, lots of buts here. With all of that said, if you don't need those upgrades, then the Apple Watch SE is still a stunning watch. Basically, all of the same features at the most affordable price ever. And like I said, if you keep an eye on places like Amazon or Apple's own refurbished section, you may even be able to pick one up at a discount. And even the last generation SE, which you can pick up on refurbished, is still a great watch with a ton of features. Because the challenge that every one of us here faces is those 2 words, but and if. But if I get the SE, I may as well get a refurbished Series 10 because I want the hypertension monitoring. But if I get the Series 10, I need the bigger screen, so I'll get the bigger Series 10. Oh, then I want LTE, and I quite like the titanium finish. And just soon enough, you've gone from paying $249 to $800 just because of a few but ifs. So my advice would be to set your budget and first decide if you need LTE or not, then decide on the features you want, which tells you if it's an SE or a Series 10, 11 or Ultra, and then upgrade the size only only if that's in your budget. Otherwise, you will just find yourself spending twice the amount that you originally planned. Now, before talking about the best premium Apple Watch, if you're not from the UK, this is going to absolutely blow your mind. And if you are from the UK, there is a way you can get basically a free Apple Watch through Vitality, which is a health insurance policy here in the UK. Now, I've had it for the last 10 years or so, and as long as I do a certain number of steps every day or a 30-minute workout, then I can get an Apple Watch like Series 11 for something like £40 or so. Plus, in addition to that, I also get a free coffee every week, free cinema tickets, 40% off on food shopping, 40% off on Garmin, 30% off of Fitbits, 50% off of gym membership, 50% off of trainers, 75% off of spa days, which all of that is just absolutely insane. And each month, those discounts are worth much more than the cost of the insurance policy, which I think for me is around £50 or so. Now, I do have an affiliate link because I'm with Vitality that also gets you £100 cash back when you sign up, so I'll leave that link down below. And if you are still watching from the States, I bet paying £50 a month for health insurance sounds a little bit crazy. Now, if you are not on a budget and you're looking for a premium watch, there are a few options. And whilst, you know, the Apple Watch Hermès is an option, honestly, who is actually going to spend like $1,300 on a watch that would be then worth nowhere near that in less than a year? Does anyone remember when Apple first launched the Apple Watch, there was like this $15,000 gold version. Now, just a few years later, is end of life. It's no longer supported by Apple, and you can literally now buy for a couple of $100 from eBay. Insane. There's no software updates. It's slow. Battery's awful. I just don't think it makes any sense to spend that sort of money on smartwatch. Like maybe a timeless watch, like a Rolex or something like that. Yeah, sure. They hold their value. They don't get worse over time, but not an Apple Watch. So in my eyes, the options here are the Series 11, a refurbished Series 10 even, the Ultra 3, or honestly even a refurbished Ultra 2, which, all of this might sound silly, but if you do opt for the 46mm titanium Series 10 or Series 11 watch, then you're almost at Ultra territory already. But what do you get for anywhere from, double the cost to an extra $50 or so to go from, titanium Series 11 to the Ultra 3? Well, you go from a 42mm or 46mm case to a larger 49mm case that's made out of titanium. Those 2,000 nits increase to 3,000 nits, which is the brightest that any smartwatch goes. It is great, and I have actually noticed that, but I've honestly never really struggled with a watch 2,000 nits outside. You also get a siren, which can be used in emergencies. The Ultra is also more of a diving watch, and although it does state that it's water resistant up to 100 meters, if you check the footnotes here, it actually tells you not to go deeper than 40 meters, so more recreational than pro diving, but it is also okay for high-speed water sports. And this is where I would advise taking out AppleCare for the Ultra, especially if you're taking it into situations like deeper diving or where it's likely to be damaged, because that can also include cover for accidental damage. Now, the Ultra also has dual GPS, so if you do outdoor sports like running, it'll be much more accurate with tracking those runs, again, particularly in built-up areas. And the big upgrade with the Ultra, of course, is the battery life, which it says now runs up to 42 hours on the Ultra 3 versus 36 on the Ultra 2, and instead of just 18 on the Series 10 and 24 hours on the Series 11. But again, after a lot of testing and a lot of research, the battery life is basically the same on both of the Ultras and both the Series 10 and 11. It's just the way Apple are marketing them this year that makes them look different. Now, the Series 11 is still definitely needs daily charging at the end of each day, whereas the Ultra 2 and the Ultra 3 will get to day 3 before it needs a charge to then last the full day again. And if you want to use the LTE, then with the Ultra, of course, this can last for way longer than the SE or the Series 11. You can pretty much get a full day out of this thing. Maybe not 24 full hours, but 18 hours, definitely achievable. Now, I actually made a video using just my Watch Ultra for a full day, including workouts, navigation, Apple Pay, even getting into my car. So I'll link that somewhere up here and down below in the video description if you want to check that out. But it is easy enough for you to, forget your phone at home, go to work, and then come back home after work without running out. Now, other minor features you get on the Ultra over the SE or the Series 11, you get this automatic night mode, which switches your watch face to this red color, so it's just easier to read at night and doesn't light up the rest of the room. The action button, of course, which you can set to do things like starting a workout or opening an app. You also get dual speakers and 3 mics over a single speaker and single mic, although again, from my testing, there's not a huge difference in audio quality when using them for voice calls. And the Watch Ultra comes with LTE as standard. You cannot buy one without LTE, whereas you have to choose that as an option on the base Series 10 or Series 11, unless you go for the titanium version, which then of course bumps up the price anyway. So if any of those features are enticing enticing to you, then the Ultra is basically the only option. Now the question is whether you get the Ultra 2 or the Ultra 3, because they are very, very similar. And honestly, for like the $200, £200 saving you can currently get from the refurbished store, I can't see there being a good reason to buy the 3. Looking at the comparison, it is literally LTPO 2 versus 3, which is like a wide-angled OLED, emergency SOS via satellites, you've got 5G versus 4G, and then the S10 chip versus the S9 chip. So if any of those are the reason to spend an extra $200, maybe you might have to rely on the emergency SOS via satellite. If you're an adventurer, then yeah, sure, go for it. Otherwise, there just isn't really a reason. Now, I'm seeing a lot of people this year go to a larger Series 10 and Series 11 because the screen is practically as big as an Ultra nowadays. But for me, personally, if I didn't have a job as a tech reviewer, I would go with the smaller Series 10 with LTE. I use it to track my sleep. I do the gym every morning. I do 20 minutes in the sauna, I shower, I head to the office, and then when I'm at my desk, I can put the watch on charge for 30 minutes or so to top it back up again. Now, I've not needed the siren ever, but then I'm not climbing mountains or anything. I don't run outside much. Most of my workouts are doing indoor workouts, weights and inside cardio. I don't dive. Like, the only thing that would make me want to upgrade is the better battery life when only on LTE. But is that worth the extra price? I don't really think so. The question of whether it's worth upgrading from an older version is a little easier this year. Now, if you have a Series 10 or an Ultra 2, there is really no reason whatsoever to upgrade to the Series 11 or the Ultra 3. If you have an SE2, then the 3 does actually have some nice updates this year. But generally speaking, at this stage, Apple Watches are so good, like even old generation watches, that unless you really feel like you need to upgrade because of the battery life, then you don't really get much more from each of these, smaller incremental updates every year. So if you are happy with the speed, the battery, the features of your current Apple Watch, there is honestly no real reason to upgrade. They all broadly do the same thing. They tell the time, show notifications from your phone, calls, texts, and unless you want the latest generation features, the health and fitness tracking, the brighter screen, better battery life, unless you want some of those, then you're probably okay with the watch that you already have on. And if you've got your Apple Watch, then check out this video about getting the most out of your watch, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye-bye.